A very warm welcome to this episode of the HuddleUK podcast. Apologies for anyone who tried to tune in last week. I was very under the weather myself, and nobody wants to listen to me cough and splutter through 45 minutes of interviews, let alone myself. Earlier this week, I had the opportunity through work of speaking to Lewis Rees-Zammit, the former Wales rugby player who's transitioned into trying to become an NFL player. He's re-signed for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it got us thinking about the journeys that players go through, players from Europe who were trying to make it in American football, who were trying to get out there and become professionals in the sport. So I'm delighted to say this week we've got an NFL Academy linebacker whose name I'm going to try and pronounce right throughout this episode. Joel Queisser, is that correct?
Yes, sir. What's up, guys?
Thank you very much for joining us, Joel. Joel, from Germany, you're back there yourself. I know you play over here in the UK. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where in Germany are you from, and how did you first come in contact with the NFL and the sport itself?
So Joel Queisser, 18 years old, middle linebacker for the NFL Academy. I'm from Düsseldorf, Germany, which is in the west. And yeah, I've played football like for my entire life. I think since I'm 10, because my stepfather used to play it, and he like introduced me to the sport. And ever since I fell in love, and it's just an awesome sport. And how I got to the NFL Academy is I just got recruited by the D-line coach. He texted me on Instagram, and that's how I got into NFL Academy.
Because you were playing for, I looked at, is it the Düsseldorf Panthers?
Yeah, I actually like started in a small club. It's called Langfeld Longhorns, but no one knows it. So, but I played for like 3, 4 years in there, and then I transitioned to Düsseldorf Panther for I think 3 years, and then I came to the NFL Academy.
You said your stepdad played the sport. Did he play middle linebacker or?
Nah, to be fair, he played linebacker and D-line, so both.
He was the sort of inspiration behind the position?
Not really. To be fair, I started playing O-line and D-line. I used to be a little heavier, so and like taller than everybody else, so they just stick me to D-line and O-line.
So you said you started playing for Longhorns, was it? Then to Dusseldorf, you got a text. What was that moment like where you realised that you'd sort of been noticed by someone a bit outside of the area?
To be fair, I did not know what the NFL. To be fair, I knew it, but I had like no contact to it because it was like pretty, I would say, in the UK, and like it was not really a big thing. Like just sort of played against them, but it just was like a team that like everybody else. But then I really got like into it after they texted me, and I just saw like that this is a great opportunity, and I need to like take advantage to really like take my game to the next level.
Were there any other sports you were considering playing? Clearly, you're a very athletic human being. Was it always this sport for you?
Uh, Before, to be fair, I never played soccer. I don't like soccer, but I used to do Muay Thai with my dad.
Uh,
Um, so I have like a boxing background.
does that help? Is there any parts of learning Muay Thai or the particularly combat sport, I guess, physicality maybe just transfer into playing American football?
Yeah, probably just the physicality and the way like my aggression comes out when I play.
Would you describe yourself then as an aggressive player?
Yeah, yeah, I like to hit people.
Well, as a linebacker, you're going to have to do a lot of that. I've been watching your highlights through on your X, and I think they're called Huddle accounts as
Yeah,
well.
huddle.
Bit like
Yeah.
like our website as well. Do you, I guess, are they recorded by coaches, and then you sort of put those up on the website to rep yourself, to give yourself some experience to show others what you're doing?
Yeah, it's basically your resume. Like every coach that wants to like or has interest in you, first thing they're gonna watch your tape, watch your highlights, watch how you play, how you understand the game, and then if they like you, they start recruiting you and like get into the process. So that's basically everything you need.
Sounds like a brilliant setup. You said then when you've heard of the NFL Academy, you didn't really know much about it. I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this podcast may not have heard of the NFL Academy or what it is. Obviously, the words were quite self-explanatory, but to those who haven't heard of it, what is the team like? What's the setup like? I believe it's in Loughborough in the UK. And how does the season work? What's the format of it?
So because we are like a pretty good team, I would say we don't really have a like a league or like a competition we play, so we just play anybody anytime, everywhere. So yeah, whoever wants to play us, that we're gonna play them. We don't really have a season, but at the start of summer, we play like our American games against like the top high schools, like Massillon, De La Salle, Edgewater, and then after that, we go into like a winter break where we like focus on our speed and we do the speed camp where you just get faster. And then during the spring we start to play the European games, and which is like yeah our spring season basically.
Have you had the opportunity to play against Dusseldorf?
Yeah, I played them last year. It was a funny game.
I was going to say, how was that experience? Were there any highlights in particular for you?
Uh, Not really like the whole game. The whole experience was just it's really funny. Obviously, there was a little bit of tension between me and them because a lot of them I played last year. We played the year before together, and then obviously playing against them is it's a little bit heated.
Was it a bit heated? Do you like, I mean, it sounds like you said you like to hit people on the field. That's the sort of game that you enjoy playing?
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I like it.
Absolutely, and don't blame you at all. Um, Going to the NFL Academy then, again, looking up some of your stats and your background, it said that you were the Academy's most improved player last season. Obviously, still only 18 years old, still growing, still getting bigger and stronger. Was there any part of the game tactically, though, from moving from Dusseldorf to the Academy that you really learned from the coaches, and what parts of your game did you see improve the most?
So before came into the NFL Academy, I never played linebacker. I always just played D-line and some QB. So I had like, to be fair, I had no understanding of coverages and how to move as a linebacker. And like the NFL Academy completely developed me, like from my movement, how to stand, how to read the O-line, how to play coverages. It's like they taught me everything, and they made me who I am today. So yeah.
If there's one lesson, like if you had to pinpoint just one of them, which was a big like eureka moment for you that really changed the way you looked at the sport and looked at the game and your position particularly.
Probably reading the O line because obviously as a D line you don't really like really you just like play and like stay in the trenches, but as a linebacker you just have to read the O line, then progress to the receivers to the quarterback and like see the whole field and see how it develops, and this is like the biggest thing that helped improve me.
Have there been any linebackers in the last couple of seasons in the NFL that you've been watching their game, particularly that players that you're trying to model yourself on learning as a young player?
No, not really. I just play my own game.
You are yourself. You're going to be your own linebacker. Fair enough. Good for you. I like the intentions. You were also selected the only international player, I believe, to play at Nike's, is it called the Next Ones event? It was
Yeah.
New Orleans for the Super Bowl week back earlier in February. I've seen a video of you talking at the event. What was that like as the only international player there, as 18 going across to America? I guess a small glimpse of realizing the dream and being out there playing.
Yeah, so obviously, to be fair, like traveling alone is it got normal to me because obviously I fly between Germany and England pretty much every 1 or 2 months. But traveling alone to the US was like it's for the first time. It was a pretty big experience, but everything like the competition there, because you was there with only like 5 and 4 stars with most like 30, 40 offers, and it was a different world for me, and the competition was completely different. The way they just like talk about the game, see the game is completely different. And it was like an honor and really blessing to just be there, be a participant of it, and like compete with the best of the best, and just to see how yourself like stand against the best of the best. And yeah, it was really like the whole trip was a blessing, and just I'm really grateful to be a part of it.
And how do you think you did stand up against them? Do you feel like you put yourself forward in a good light over there?
Yeah, for sure, I did pretty good.
A lot of the tweets and posts I've seen on X from the NFL Academy keep saying your name the one to watch out for. You seem like a very confident young man. Do you any, not sort of weight of expectations, but do you feel like you're in a really good position at being 18? You've already had that experience out there in America. Do you feel like you're on a really good path at the moment? Because from the outside looking in, it certainly seems that way.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I get enough exposure, I get the exposure I need, and now it's just really like to let my film speak for itself and just show the world and show the coaches who I am. And yeah, this is the way I need to just present myself.
I've seen a few players that you've been playing with on the team that have been given places in Division One schools. I'm sure some of them will be your teammate that you'll be friends with. Are there any of those in particular who you'd say to watch out for?
Probably Yaya. He's at Colorado right now. Freshman year. He's a big name. He's going to be a big name for sure. Like he has the potential to be a star. I think he's already a pretty big star in the NFL Academy, and going forward, I think he's going to be a big like part of the NFL Academy men who move on to the D1 schools and just show who they are.
Sounds like a bright future for him, but for yourself, when in the future will those opportunities arise for you to potentially get a place in a Division One school out in the States?
So I'm class of 2026, so I would have 1.5 more years until my high school career is over. And yeah, right now it's all just about getting exposure, getting in contact with schools, and just getting the opportunity to get recruited and getting a scholarship to a D1 program and just play college football.
Have you had any contact with any Division One schools so far?
Yeah, I'm talking to some schools. Obviously, it's just a matter of time, I would say, until the step is there. So some school to get me recruited. But yeah, I'm talking to some schools.
Can you say what schools, or is it at this stage you just got to keep that all, shut your lips and just see how it develops?
Right now, I just want to see how it develops. I just don't want to say something.
No, I don't blame you at all. I'd be in the exact same position if I did. So about 18 months more before those opportunities might arise, have you set yourself any challenges and about your growth and development to try and hit before you take that next step?
Getting ranked probably, and being. I want to be part of an All-American game next year. Uh, these are my goals I set for myself. Because I know I have the potential to be one of the greatest to be there. So this is my goal. Yeah.
And what do you think of the challenges? As I said at the top, I was speaking through work this week to Louis Sami. I'm not sure that's the name you've come across, but he was in the international player pathway last year, signed for the Chiefs initially, then got cut. And he was a supreme athlete in rugby, one of the best from Wales, and then goes over to the States and finds the transition quite difficult, still hasn't played a regular season game. What challenges do you think there are facing young kids like yourself coming through and wanting to play the sport professionally over there?
The biggest challenge is just to like get the exposure because being from overseas, it's hard to be seen by colleges because they think of Europeans or like outside of the US that we can't play ball, that we don't know how to play football, and this just you just have to prove yourself that you're like an athlete, you can play football, and yeah, the biggest like challenges would definitely be exposure and just being behind everybody from the US because they grow up with football. They play football since they're 3 years old. Like they get so much more experience in how the game goes, how the game plays, and this is like the biggest challenge to really just get exposure and keep up or get back to the level where everybody else is in the US.
And if you were talking to a young kid from Germany or the UK here who was trying to do that now, following your own footsteps maybe, would you recommend the NFL Academy? Do you think that's probably the best route to go for a player on this side of the pond?
Yeah, pretty much like the NFL Academy is a once in a life opportunity to just like get the chance. You're like one of 50 people who play the sport and like you have so definitely better exposure being in an NFL Academy than for example just being in a local club or going to like to be fair, going to a high school would be also like a pretty good opportunity. But these are like the only two, like going NFL Academy or going to a high school in America, just to get the exposure, just to be there.
So for yourself and in the NFL Academy, you're not the youngest person there anymore, but also not the veteran. Do you feel yourself as a leader of the group? You've got that sort of aura, that charisma that strikes me as someone who'd like to wear a captain's badge at times.
Yeah, obviously, mid linebacker is the quarterback of the defense, so I'll consider myself. I'm leading my defense pretty well. I'm a leader of the whole team. Um, I coach my players. I coach. I'm just like I lead the defense. I lead the team.
But I guess the more you learn when you're actually watching the NFL on a Sunday, you watching it differently, being so aware of the game now as a middle linebacker.
Yeah, for sure. Like the way I always see it as like a chess game. The offense attacking the defense and the defense adapting to what the offense plays. Um, I would say it's different. Like I don't watch it for entertainment. I watch it to learn and grow as a player myself.
Have you taken some of the fun out of the sport then, maybe?
Yeah, I would say so.
Who did you have a team growing up? Was there an NFL team that you had jerseys for that you support?
Growing up, the Seattle Seahawks were my favorite team because my dad was also a Seattle Seahawks fan, and I've actually been to the Wembley game, Seahawks versus Raiders, I think 2017 or 18. Yeah, so, but after some time, I just grew up. I don't have a favorite team. I just like to watch football.
But you must have enjoyed as someone on the defensive side of the ball watching the Legion of Boom back then. Was that what got you into the Seahawks as well as what your stepdad supported?
Yeah, pretty much. It was nice to see a good defense.
One of the most fun ones to watch for sure. And you, as you said, you don't support them now, but going forward, can you see yourself one day maybe playing out there in Lumen Field in Seattle? It's a bit cold out there, not the warmest place in the States, but I guess that would be a realization of a dream come true.
Yeah, for sure. Like, to be fair, I would play at any team. Obviously, it would be nice to play for any NFL team. But yeah, being a Seahawk would be like a. I would think I make a dream true for my stepdad as well because he's like a Seahawks fan. So I think we'll make him really proud.
Ladies and gentlemen, a name to remember as they keep saying over on X, Joel Queisser, thank you very much for joining the huddle. We'll be keeping an eye out for your name in the NFL Academy and in 18 months' time for maybe a Division One school. And after that, who knows, in the NFL, we can say that we interviewed back when you were an 18-year-old all the way back on the Huddle UK channel. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And yourself, you said that you want to see people watching your plays and your highlights. Where can they find those? Tell anyone listening that where to find them.
Uh, Thanks for having me. Yeah, probably a great opportunity. If you want to find me, my IG, it's JJ underscore J0EL. On Twitter, it's just my name, Joel Queisser.
You can find all the links to the coaches and the highlight reels of Joel over on those accounts. If you're watching this on the YouTube version, you'll see the little tag at the bottom of the video where you can go and find Joel and everything that he's done. Thank you very much for joining us. I wish you all the best of luck, and we'll be rooting for you here at Huddle UK.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again to Joel Queisser for joining us, talking about his NFL Academy and his route, his journey, hopefully to be an NFL star one day. I very much hope that we were here early on as Huddle UK. We got there early as an 18-year-old and hopefully see him progress. Joining us now is the Huddle UK's betting writer, a writer for the franchise tag. I know he's got plenty of followers over on social media, Adam Martin. Adam, thank you very much for joining us. Have you got a college team yourself? Are you a fan of any of the Division One teams?
College. So Andrew, the guy who I did all the draft stuff with, he's a lot more college than me. But I do have a bit of a soft spot for LSU. I have always,
Okay,
I've
LSU.
always kind of like I started watching a bit of college when Joe Burrow was there with Jamar Chase, so I've kind of carried on with that. But yeah, it's they get a lot of good offensive players, and I'm a Packers fan as well, so kind of like the offense is the main bit, isn't it? Really, let's face it. So
Yeah, if you like watching good
yeah,
wide receivers, LSU is sort of the college to watch in recent years. Brian Thomasina was
yeah, he
LSU,
was,
wasn't he? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so I mean, I think is going to be a star next year. I mean, was already brilliant in his rookie year. I want to chat to you about Combine, the draft. I know that's kind of your area of expertise, so to speak, even if you're not a big college watcher. I want to talk to you a couple of the big prospects. We could talk all day. I'm sure we could literally talk all day about the hundreds of different players that are going through. But I want to talk to them about the guys who are at the top of most people's big boards and the guys who are going to go early on. Because I think last year we kind of knew Caleb was going number one. It seemed quite certain. The closer you got to the draft, Jane and Daniel seemed pretty locked at 2 and Drake May at 3. I know we're a couple months out from the draft at this point of recording, but it's far more up in the air, the top 3 picks right now, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a few different guys. I think what you're dealing with here is a class where the quarterbacks are just not of the same caliber as what we've had in certainly last year. I think the year before that, I think it wasn't as good as 24, but there's just not a lot in this year's class. You've basically got Cam Ward and you've got Shador Sanders as the 2 main quarterbacks. I'm not massively sold on either of them, to be brutally honest. I think that both of them have the potential to become starting quarterbacks in this league. They do. You can't argue against that. At the same time, I would argue there's just as much chance of whichever team that takes these guys, they're going to be in the same position in 3 years' time. You know, that's what could end up happening with these two guys. I think neither of them are like well-rounded at everything. They kind of got different benefits. Cam Ward is a very athletic quarterback who kind of, to me, very much reminds me of like a young. He's a bit smaller and he's a bit more athletic, but like a bit like Big Ben. He's one of these guys where when the play breaks down, he can just make something happen. So he does have that potential about him. Shedeur Sanders, very accurate, very he's composed at times. I mean, the O-line that he had at Colorado was a disaster. It was all over the place. So it's like, but he's very accurate, very solid. Reminds me very much of Teddy Bridgewater when he was at college. Maybe that's not what people want to hear because everyone knows that Bridgewater, although he had a career and still, you know, in the NFL, it wasn't like amazing starter all the time. But yeah, I mean, you've got a couple of guys that are just not. They're not Caleb Williams. They're not Jaden Daniels. They haven't got the excitement. They haven't had the college careers, and so that's the problem, and that's why you've got all this sort of to-ing and throwing as to who you think is going to go top.
I quite like it. I think personally, when you kind of know the first 4 or 5 picks, it takes a bit of the fun away from the draft. I like the lottery. I like the fact that people are going, can the Tennessee Titans, can they trade out of the one spot? Is Abdul Carter the guy they need to take? Which of the quarterbacks is better? It was interesting. Speaking to Daniel Jeremiah briefly, I got one question in, which was great yesterday. If you don't know, if you listen to who Daniel Jeremiah is, he's the expert. He is the dude about this who everyone wants to listen to. His mock drafts are probably the most read ones in the world. And you'll see at the end of this episode, actually, we got one question about him for a first-time Combine watcher. So if you hadn't watched the Combine before, we get a bit of advice from him at the end of this episode, so stay tuned for that. He was saying, interestingly, the more that he's watched it, he finds the gap between Cam Ward and Sanders is growing. He thinks Ward, the more he watches, the closer it gets to the draft, is the clear number 1 quarterback in this draft. I see you're nodding along. Would you agree with that sentiment?
I feel that he is. It's funny, like I say, we just did Joel Klatt's one on a mock that we did where we went through it, and he said the complete opposite, where he's gone that Sanders is the number 1 guy, and he feels that's the case. So I mean, it is all about opinion, but I have to say, I feel that Cam Ward has the potential to really blow up and be massive, whereas I think that Sanders is just steady. I think that's what you're dealing with, and so it's about trying to work out that sort of, you know, do you think he's worth it? And so it is very sort of, it's difficult, obviously, but to me, I feel like if you're going to use a first round pick, you want to use it on a guy that, firstly, not only you think is going to be great, but also has, if you're not 100% sold, you think that he's going to have the potential to be great. And I think that Cam Ward maybe has that slightly more than what Shedeur Sanders has. And maybe that's why you're starting to see people like Daniel Jeremiah say that sort of thing, because he does just have that athleticism and explosiveness, which is the way that the NFL is going now. Whereas for Sanders, is that bit more of a pocket passer and maybe isn't going to be able to do as much. Because when you think of how it used to be, where you just sit in the pocket and just throw the ball and just literally just pick teams off, you can't do that anymore. Not and win every week. It just doesn't work. So you need that explosiveness. So yeah, I think that's why people like Ward.
I think people use the words ceiling and floor in fantasy circles a lot. And I think that's the key difference, isn't it, when you look at the two? Sanders seems like a safe floor, quite a safe, steady quarterback. Nothing particularly dreadful. He's expected to be a top 5, top 10 pick in the NFL draft. This isn't a bad player we're talking about. But if you're going to draft a quarterback in the top 5 picks, you want that to be the guy who ultimately can win you
Yeah.
a Super Bowl. But that's the aim, isn't it? And you want the guy who's got the highest ceiling. We'll move on from the quarterbacks because there's loads of names that we won't have time to go through them all. But the one who I did touch upon briefly is Abdul Carter. He seems to be at the top of most people's big board as the number one, the best player in this draft, the edge rusher from Penn State. He is just a weapon. It's such an explosive position, a game-changing position, and he won't go outside of the top 3 or 4 picks.
No, absolutely not. I mean, he's the number one guy. I would argue. A lot of people will say Travis Hunter. I will come out and say he's the number one guy. He has everything that you need as an edge rusher, and you kind of feel like he's only gonna get better. So a lot of people are mocking him to the Cleveland Browns. Now, my argument has been, if Myles Garrett does get traded away, they take him. But if Myles Garrett doesn't get traded away, you still take him because he is that good. And if you can have Garrett on one side and him on the other, then you've got a great defensive, ends there. So yeah, I think that he's great. He's brilliant at pretty much everything you need. He has the bend, he has the agility, he has the speed, he has the power. Everything that you're going to want from an edge rusher in the NFL. And, a lot of people like to compare him to Micah Parsons because obviously he's Penn State, he's number 11 and all that sort of thing. But it feels like he's got more power behind him when you see him play. He just sort of he has that extreme sort of just ability that is very, very rare. And I think that you're just seeing a guy who is going to absolutely kill it in the NFL. He's going to be amazing.
There's no part of his game, is there, where you sometimes there's players and they've got lots of positives, and then you see the negatives. They go, are they day one ready? Can they fill in as a rookie?
Yeah,
he can.
Absolutely. I mean, look, he's going to have some things that need to develop. Of course he is. I mean, it's like any rookie that comes into the NFL, but to have that sort of mixture of speed, power, size, agility, to have all of them things, it's like, what more can you want? So yeah, I think he's just going to have everything that you need, and unfortunately for him, he might end up in Cleveland. So it's a bit of a tough one for that, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I would have him as the number one guy. He would be the first round pick for me, and I like I said about the quarterbacks, I'm not overly sold on either of them. Next year's class is meant to be very, very good in 2026, and I know that the idea is that you don't just give up before you've started, but I feel like the Titans would be much better off taking Abdul Carter than they would be taking a quarterback.
The skill positions, again, to touch on fantasy football, is where a lot of I think over here in the UK, I smile when I say fantasy football, but that's how I got into the NFL. That was my route into it, by learning offense, and then the more you watch it, you learn how the defensive side of the ball works as well. But people want to know about the running backs, don't they, and the wide receivers. They're the names, the flashy names, I guess. And we said before we went on air, there's one guy who I think every team would, no matter who your running back currently is, would love to have Ashton Chauncey on their team. With his highlight reel, the tape, I don't think I've ever seen him have a bad snap. This is a guy who, Saquon Barkley proved it this year, and will change the market for the contracts and the salaries that running backs are going to get. But this is a guy who's going to be a game changer on offense, isn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, he's had an insane year for Boise State, and he was good the year before as well. He's had a really good college career, and he's again another player that's just got everything that you need at running back. And it's interesting because in this year he didn't really get involved in the passing game much, predominantly because he didn't need to. I mean, he was basically the offense, and he just sort of he did it all from the line of scrimmage, so it wasn't a problem for him. But yeah, he's great in the passing game as well. But yeah, so he's going to be amazing. A lot, you see a lot of mocks with him going to the Cowboys. It's the obvious sort of the Cowboys need a running back after having such a poor year last year at running back. So it makes sense for him to go there. I mean, when we did our own, I had him going to the Raiders at 6. I think he's definitely one that would be. It's a weird one because the class is very strong this year. It's quite deep at running back, but at the same time, it feels like he is the premium one. He's the one that's really gonna sort of be able to make a difference to your teams. But there's a lot of them this year. There's loads of different guys that look really, really good. Amarian Hampton looks amazing. He's been another one that's gone under the radar a little bit because of Gentry. Like, it's just sort of taken over, so he hasn't been able to get the airtime that he would have got in previous years. But yeah, there's loads of them.
I actually had him go to the Raiders in my first mock draft as well. And if that happens, I will be beyond annoyed that my favourite college prospect for 2 years in a row has gone to the Raiders. As a Chargers fan following Brock Bowers last year, will be beyond frustrated with that because I was, people say take Malik Neighbours at 5 for Chargers. I was still screaming Brock Bowers. I knew it was early. I knew he was going to drop a few more picks, but I was like, don't care. And look what the Chargers are now, still needing a tight end. And what a lovely segue that is to the tight end position. Two guys seem to be quite clear. Tyler Warren out of Penn State is the one. I think it's kind of 50-50 split I've seen on which one comes first. And then Colston Loveland from Michigan is the other. I think as a Chargers fan, a lot of people are mocking Colston Loveland to the Chargers because of the connection with Jim Harbaugh and Michigan and the fact that they worked together at college. I would take either of them, frankly. I think they're both very good tight ends. How do you see them as players? Do you see much difference between them? And how far do you think either will fall down the first round?
I think they are very close in ability. Colston Loveland's the one who's kind of done it over multiple seasons, whereas for Tyler, Warren kind of came in this season and just blew up, was really good. So there is that slight concern that it's a one-off. There's always that issue with that. But to be honest, they're both very, very good tight ends, so that they're both quite tight. When it comes to where they fall, I know that the Colts are tipped to go for a tight end. It's definitely an area that they do need to look at. But it's a solid tight end class. There are some really good guys in here, so there's no real need for them to go for it first round if they desperately don't want to spend that much on a tight end. It is becoming more important, the tight end position. It's something that Andrew's been saying for a couple of years now. When you look at the teams that make it not only to the Super Bowl but also to the playoffs and the championship games, most of these teams have got really top quality tight ends and certainly like the better ones in the league. So I think it is important that these teams go for him, but I feel like top 10 might be pushing it for these two guys.
The final skill position really on offense then is the wide receivers. Travis Hunter, are we calling him a wide receiver?
He's going to the combine, isn't he, as a cornerback? So I think that tells you quite a lot. The fact that he's going there as a corner, he wants to play both sides of the ball. I think if that happens, then he's going to be a corner 100% of the time, and then maybe like do a few snaps every game at wide receiver. I think that's probably how it's going to end up. So I'd have him as corner.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just think if you're going to use your second, third overall pick, wherever he may go, on a player, to play him in so many snaps, if you're playing him every snap on offense and defense, you're just asking for him to get injured and pick up injuries. I think that's bordering on foolish to waste such a pick and risk a player to that extent. Because as you say, no one has really done what he's done, and then to take that step up to the NFL and do it would be, I mean, if he does it, tip the hat to him, but I would be surprised if he's put in that position. The out-and-out wide receivers then, going back to last summer, I remember looking and Luther Burden kind of seemed like most people's first choice 9 months ago. The more last season went on, it was more Tech McMillan overtook him and now seems to be ignoring Hunter, the consensus number one wide receiver. Two very different guys. McMillan's like 6'5", big guy. Luther Burden, bit more undersized, 5'11". Different skill sets, but two players who will be a really good boost to whoever they sign. And we'll get to Metcalf and Booker as well.
Yeah, Ted McMillan is Mike Evans waiting to happen. I mean, he really is. He's got the height, he's got the sort of the strength, and a lot of people have him down as just like a contested catches guy, but in reality, if you can get him the ball in space, he can move as well. I mean, he's got his legs going for ever. Like, it's ridiculous how so he's great. I think he's going to do really well in the NFL. He's kind of that because of his size, and obviously the strength that kind of comes with it. He's a bit of an outlier compared to some of the other sort of wide receivers that we've seen in the last few years. So I think he's going to be a little bit different, almost a bit of a throwback to a certain extent. But I do feel like he's very Mike Evans. He just feels like there's not many like that, and so I think that he'll do really, really well. I've actually got Egbuka as my number 2 wide receiver, but Burden just had a really sort of he had a down year, but Missouri just had a down year. It's like he's still a really good wide receiver, but I just think that Egbuka he's the best route runner in this class, and a lot of people in Ohio State feel that he's going to do better than what JSN it did. They had him as a higher sort of recruit than what JSN was, and JSN, I mean, first year, okay, he maybe didn't get involved too much, but he had a great year last year, and you sort of think if he's going to be better than that, then any team is going to be lucky to have him. So I think having that, the technique that he has, the route running that he can do, and he can do everything as well. He's just a bit more like a lot of the other guys that we've seen in the last few years, but he's very, very good and quite underrated. And yeah, like I say, Burden's no slouch. Burden's going to be a great wide receiver. He just had a down year, so it's kind of like he's dropped down a little bit. Once you get past them 3, it drops off a little bit. Some people are talking about Matthew Golden. They think that he's going to be really good. He's only really had 1 year at Texas, though, and it was a good year, but there's not a lot of production before that. So that one, wide receivers, a bit of a quiet one this year. And then once you get past that, it really is kind of like shots in the dark, to be honest.
I do, the one I will throw the shot, there's not a crazy shot in the dark, it's probably the next guy on the list, but Trey Harris is just a guy who's got good hands. When the ball goes his way, more often than not, he is reeling it in. Love watching a guy who, when the ball goes, like Lad McConkey was the equivalent last year, when the ball went to him, he caught it, and maybe not separation, not the best explosiveness, not the best route tree, but will catch a pass, and I think if you can prove that in practice as a rookie, you get the trust of your quarterback quickly. And I don't think he's not going to be a first-round pick, but I think he's a player who will be a good, wide receiver 3, potentially wide receiver 2 on an NFL roster going forward. Adam, thank you very much for joining us. I'll have to get you on a prediction closer to the draft of who your consensus top 5s will be, who your betting predictions will be, to get on the HuddleUK website. Adam is over on X as well if you want to go follow him. He's at AdamN_NFL, of course. And hopefully we'll have you on again sometime soon. Thank you very much for joining us.
Whenever you need me, if you want me to do any betting or draft stuff, just give us a shout.
Well, our thanks once again to both Adam Martin and, of course, Joel Queisser. Thank you very much for joining this week's episode of the HuddleUK podcast. We'll have more on the combine and the draft, and loads more on the draft as we kick through March and April. Looking forward to it. I'm already excited, as I'm sure you are. As we touched on at the start of our chat with Adam, we were lucky enough to have a question. We got one question in with Daniel Jeremiah, who is on Twitter at Move the Sticks, the most famous analyzer of the draft and the combine in the NFL. There was lots of in-depth stuff. You can see the whole interview with Daniel Jeremiah over on the NFL's media website. It's about 2.5 hours long. Fair play to him for sitting through, having millions of questions thrown at him, from team-specific ones to the draft in general. But I wanted to get his feelings and what he would suggest to a person who hadn't watched the combine before. And here's the question that we got in with him at the start.
The interest in the NFL over here in the UK is growing at a huge rate, and particularly the off-season interest now is growing with each passing year. With a focus on the combine next week, what drills for specific positions would you advise a first-time combine watcher really pay attention to? And are there any sort of non-measurables when you're scouting these prospects that you really pay attention to instead of the numbers?
Well, that's great. I'm glad there's more interest building here with this event. It's a lot of fun to watch. I would say, first of all, if you're watching it for the first time, the most fun part of the combine is I think on the fan side of things is you want to watch guys run fast. So, the receivers and the DBs, when they get a chance to run 40s, it's just me and Rich Eisen have a blast because we got the best seat in the house, and it's just still fun to watch guys that can absolutely fly. That's something to watch there. Quarterback wise, you just want to see how the ball comes out of their hand. You're not going to necessarily worry about, all the ball placement things and, ding them on accuracy, throwing to guys they're not used to, but you can get a sense for just how they spin the ball, how the ball comes out of their hand. I think when you look at explosive positions in terms of like edge rushers, I always think it's important to see their jumps, like see their vertical, see their broad, just see how much explosiveness they can generate. Those are some of the things you look at there. In terms of outside the numbers, look, the team's going to get access to stuff we don't, obviously the medical information and the interviews that they have in the evenings. But I always think there's value in if you're watching these groups and you see, who ends up kind of being the leaders in these groups, who do players navigate towards, who do they want to be around and talk to. I think there's information you can gather just by watching these guys interact.
As DJ himself says there, the 40-yard dash is often the thing that the fans enjoy most. Last year, we saw a record-breaking 40-yard dash with Xavier Worthy before he signed or got drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, a player who we've seen the explosive speed all year, all season long. Unfortunately, not a Super Bowl for him on his rookie season, but a very good rookie season as it was for Worthy. Loads of great drills. It all starts next week on Thursday. We've got all the positions. There'll be plenty of players up. So watch it, enjoy, let us know. Send us your messages over on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Facebook, whether it may be. You can comment on the reels here on YouTube or on TikTok. Let us know what players you've seen that you're enjoying. Let us know if you're having a go at scouting some prospects for the first time, if there's any players from college that you've particularly taken an interest in and who you think your own team, your NFL team, will be drafting in the first round of this year's draft. Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of the Huddle UK podcast. As always, we'll be back next weekend at 10 a.m. We'll probably do some more combine diving stuff. Then in the week after that, we've got a special guest coming on that's already lined up as well. So still plenty of content. I've been Philip Marsh, the host, as always. Remember to check out all the content over on the Huddle UK website at www.HuddleUK.com. We've got loads and loads of stories going up every week. Still, all of our writers giving their takes on who they think their teams will be drafting, what holes need to be filled. So get involved. Again, let us know your opinion, see if you agree, or even if you disagree. Let's have a friendly conversation over on social media. You could do with more of that nowadays. Thank you very much for joining. We shall see you next week.